Good evening. We will call this Planning Commission meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. First order of business is to welcome our new commissioner, Leah McCarthy. She brings a wealth of knowledge from a risk management background, both on the private sector and the public sector. So we're very excited to have her on board. Welcome. She will be here to essentially commission shadow. It's kind of a daunting task to onboard. So she's got the training wheels on for tonight. She will not be voting in any of the hearing portion of the evening, just rather taking it all in and just getting her feet wet. So thank you and welcome. Thanks. Citizen input on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on non-agenda items. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and Planning Commission will make every effort to respond to questions raised. I'm sorry, we need to back up a step. Consent items, we need to address those. Do we have Commissioner Jarosh on board yet?
We do not.
Okay, so if she is not on board, we have 1, 2, 3. So we cannot vote on November 25th. And we can vote on, no, we cannot. No, 1, 2, 3. We can't vote on the second one either.
Let's hold for now until,
Okay.
if Judy.
If she jumps on, then we'll circle back to that one.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Push that off to the side. As I were. Citizen input on non-agenda items. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and the Planning Commission will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens' input before the meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Do we have any citizen input on non-agenda items this evening?
We do not.
Very well.
Yes, we do. It's just a card. Oh, shoot. We've never.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. I've never done this before, so.
Are you co-presenting?
Yes.
No,
Well, not really. She's my support.
Okay, very well.
My
So-
name's
Oh, go ahead.
Andrea McGrady, and I live on 1914 South Grant Street
Okay.
in the new development Ivy Ridge Estates. And I'm coming to you all because of my frustration. My property backs up to city-owned green space, and I've been having an issue with drainage. And for 2 years, I've been reaching out to different people. I thought I was reaching out to the right people, but I'm not getting follow-up. And I have a huge email chain and text chain, and that will take way over 3 minutes. But my question to you is, who do I need to talk to about drainage problems that are coming from city property onto my property?
Gotcha. Don, do you have the org chart for that?
It would generally be Public Works, but we're taking your information down. We'll coordinate with them tomorrow on this situation. So 1914 South Grant Street, Ivy Ridge Estates. Is it the park property that is the drainage issue, the property that will become a park?
That will become a park.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I was supposed to bring up names of who I have spoken with.
That's fine.
It's okay. I think we get the gist of that. And,
Okay.
Did you put your phone number and your contact information on there? That would be greatly helpful.
Okay, I'll do it
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I'm done.
and
Yeah.
we'll follow back
and-
up, with you.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want, I have dates and names of people I have talked with. If that helps you, I can leave that with you.
Yeah, if you've got that, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
It's generally the Public Works Department that deals with drainage issues, and especially if it's related to the park property in particular.
Yeah.
Planning will facilitate that discussion.
Right.
There's no one here from Public Works tonight, which is planning
Right.
staff.
I guess this, my frustration is I have reached out to people
Sure.
and I actually met with somebody and then there's no follow-up, and this has been going on since 2023. So it gets a little frustrating 2 years
No,
later.
And I understand it. I think there's,
This was the last ditch effort.
sure. I
This
mean-
is our last ditch effort coming to you, sorry.
No, it's fine. I
problem.
mean, ultimately, there's the desire to put a park in that, which would probably solve everything, but I think
Right.
that's part of the issue, is it's not developed as a park yet.
Right, right. And it was the way the chunk of land was left, my home actually sits lower. There's 9 homes we have 2 green spaces, and I'm on the larger chunk. And 2 homes, mine and my neighbor on the corner, we sit lower than everybody else. And therefore, all the runoff, when we have all those lovely rains, drains into our yard. And I had just had my yard landscaped by a landscaping company, and it flooded. And so I've been trying to deal with this for 2 years, and yeah, it's
No,
just, nothing's
I'm
happening.
sorry that you're having the difficulty. I mean, drainage is not fun to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I've come to you,
Yeah.
and I can leave. Who would you like me to leave?
Please, you can hand that to, Emily. Yeah.
Do you have a copy for yourself, just so that?
Yes,
Yeah,
at home.
okay.
And I've got tons of copies of everything, the emails and,
All right.
pictures, and, which I already sent to a person on that list, and so if I need to resend them to you, I can.
Okay. So Don, is it
We
safe
have
to say?
we have an action item to follow back up, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yep.
Thank
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, and his name is Don Hardy, in case you're wondering.
You will get a call back. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You're
Andrea, how do
welcome.
you spell your last name?
Oh, MC, capital G, RADY.
R-A-D-Y.
D is in dog, Y. McGrady,
McGrady.
Irish.
Yeah.
Andrea.
All right. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, the phone number would be great.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the next item, which is old business. There's none, which takes us to new business, which there is none, which will now take us to our public hearings portion of the evening. Tonight, there's a matter before the hearing body that requires a public hearing. All questions must be directed through the chair, that's myself. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained within the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the other land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties the opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Conflict of interest. At this time, I would like to ask any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing, from hearing the present matter. And we'll begin with Commissioner Llewellyn.
No conflict.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
No conflicts.
Vice Chair Ewert.
No conflict.
And I as well have no conflict. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding ex parte contact or conflict of interest? I'm sorry, let's go back one paragraph. Ex parte contact. If any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. And we'll begin with, again, Commissioner Llewellyn,
No contact.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
I walk by the site frequently and drove by it just a few moments ago.
okay. Vice Chair Ewert,
I visited the site, drew no conclusions.
and I had to drive by the site almost on a daily basis, but not to visit for the intent of this of this hearing. So, does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding ex parte contact or a conflict of interest? None? All right, so we will get rolling. This is how it will go down. Staff will present. There'll be questions taken at that time at the conclusion of Brianna's presentation. And then I will open the public hearing for testimony where the applicant can speak for up to 20 minutes. The proponents that are here to support it get 3 minutes apiece. Opponents get 3 minutes. And then if there's any rebuttal needed, you'll receive 10 minutes for any rebuttal. And then at that point, I will close the public hearing, and then we will deliberate amongst ourselves and ultimately, hopefully, come out with a decision. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna to present Canby Christian Parking Lot Expansion CUP 25-01/VAR 25-01.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brianna, Associate Planner, City of Canby. And as Chair Ellison said, we are here tonight to review the parking lot expansion for the parcel that is addressed 489 North Ivy Street. It's part of the Canby Christian Church campus. Some existing conditions for the site. Again, 489 North Ivy Street was the address. This picture shows a house. The house has been demolished. The site is currently vacant. The entire block is owned by Canby Christian, and there are, the facilities, the building is on the south portion of the block, and the north portion of the block is their parking lot. For the parking lot, which is what we're focusing on tonight, there are 4 existing access points off of 5th, and there's a through alley access from Ivy on the west, or excuse me, on the east side to Holly on the west. To orient everyone, this is between Ivy and Holly and 4th and 5th on the north side of town. Here is a little bit more background, including the zoning. So one of the unique conditions of the campus here is the south side is zoned C1, downtown commercial, and the north side, the parking lot, is zoned R2, high density residential. Again, we're focusing on the parking lot, so we're looking technically at R2 standards, but the CUP and the variances will address some of those R2 standards that may not being met because this is a conditional use. The original conditional use permit was granted in 1966. I believe the church was there before that date, but that's when the CUP was granted. It was expanded in 1975 and in 1992, just occupying more of that same block there. They grew over time. They did receive variances originally granted to the building for setbacks. And I just want to point out that the conditional use permit for the religious facility covers most of the block, but not this particular parcel that we're looking at tonight. That's what you would be deciding on, extending that conditional use permit to that specific parcel. And again, the parcel we're looking at is starred here, kind of in the northeast quadrant of the block. So the proposed project is to expand the parking lot. They want to add a net total of 33 spaces. And they are also proposing one additional access point onto Northwest 5th Avenue near Ivy. The conditional use is required to expand the existing conditional use approval for the church in the R2 zone. And the major variance requests are to alter 6 individual numerical standards in the Canby Development Code. Here is the proposed site plan. It is sideways, but you can see here, I'll orient you. 5th, which is the north portion of the site, is actually on the right side of the screen here. Ivy is on the bottom of the screen. The facilities, if you're picturing this, would be on the left-hand side from this parking lot here. And you can see the alley that splits the building from the parking lot. So here's the proposal. It's, again, 33 spaces, some landscaping, primarily around the border, and a hedge along Ivy as well. And you can see the proposed new access point. It's 20 feet wide. It's a new 20 driveway there in the corner. And you can also see the ADA ramp they propose to reconstruct there. And all the dimensions are there. I won't list out all the dimensions, but we have this if we need to come back to it. So the applicable criteria from the development code, we have general provisions, which is traffic study, parking and loading, R2, access limitations, site and design review, conditional uses and variances, and just going over the type 3 process. So first, we're going to dive into those sections. The traffic study findings are first. The applicant states that the parking would serve let's start over. Applicant states new parking would serve to accommodate existing demand. Therefore, the proposed parking would result in no new net peak hour trips, and an off-site impact analysis was not warranted. So essentially, this is more parking to accommodate existing demand. North Ivy Street and North 5th Avenue both meet city street cross-section standards. The proposed access nearest Ivy would not meet spacing standards, which we will address later. And the preliminary site distance was determined to be adequate, and it would be verified before we approve the final site plan. So off-street parking standards. We have parking ratios listed in our code. Churches require 1 space per 4 seats. Canby Christian has 238 seats, which would require 80 spaces. Right now they have 82, and the new total would be 108. But again, as the applicant states, this is more specific to the demand that they are seeing. So, parking ratios in our code are kind of a baseline standard assumption. They're self-reporting that they have more demand. So proposed, the dimensions of the parking stalls would meet standard, 9 by 18. The standard drive aisle width is 24 feet, but the proposed new aisle is 21.5 feet. And that's the first of 6 variances requested. We'll go over all of those when we get to the variance chapter, but I wanted to flag that as number 1. Access limitation. So this is more about the newly proposed access point. The proposed access onto Northwest 5th Avenue would be 13.25 feet closer to the intersection of 5th and Ivy than the standard of 5 feet. As a concession, the applicant has proposed a restricted access to that point, and it would be right in and right out only. These are the exception standards. These are just for your consideration when you're considering specifically this new access point. An exception may be allowed from the access spacing standards if the applicant can provide proof of unique or special conditions that make strict application of the provisions impractical. And the details of that are indirect or restricted access can't be obtained. There aren't any engineering or construction solutions, and no alternative access is viable from a lower classification street. And I will say that Northwest 5th Avenue is a local, and so that is a lower classification from Ivy. So number 3, at least, is being met there. Moving on to the R2 zone standards. Again, this is a conditional use proposal, so certain standards wouldn't apply as long as you choose to approve the conditional use permit. The setbacks for a parking lot obviously wouldn't apply, and the minimum density wouldn't be applicable if you choose to approve this. One thing that does still apply here is in the R2 zone, the maximum impervious surface allowed is 70%, and they are proposing 92% coverage. And that's variance request number 3. For site and design review, it's quite a long chapter, so I've only chosen to list out the numerical standards that they are requesting variances for. The rest of them were not applicable, or they did meet them, and they're more detailed in the staff report here. But quickly, the 4th, 5th, and 6th variances they are requesting will be found in 16.49. So they are requesting a variance to the amount of landscaping required in residential zones from 30 to 10. They are requesting a reduction in landscaping required in parking lots from 15 to 10. And they are requesting that the perimeter tree islands be accepted as landscape islands, and those would technically be a bank of 11 stalls when the standard is 8 stalls before a landscape island. Okay, going over the criteria for conditional uses. The Plan Commission shall weigh the proposal's positive and negative features that would result from authorizing the particular development at the location proposed. These 4 approval criteria are consistencies with the policies of the comp plan, development code, and transportation system plan. The characteristics of the site are suitable for the proposed use considering size, shape, design, location, topography, existence of improvements, and natural features. Required public facilities and services exist to adequately meet the needs of the proposed development, and the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding areas. We do know, this area is in our downtown. It is previously developed and now currently vacant. There are utilities that serve the site, but they won't be needing them. So those are just some considerations that you can take into account when considering these approval criteria. All right, variances. I'm about to read a lot. Hold on a second. Okay, just because it's important to go over the variance approval criteria. So, the Commission may authorize variances from the requirements of the Development Code where it can be shown that owing to special and unusual circumstances related to a specific piece of property, the literal interpretation of the regulations would cause an undue or unnecessary hardship. So there are 6 standards and criteria which must be met, and there are 6 variances requested. So Planning Commission is to consider each of the 6 criteria for each of the variances requested. And you will see the applicant provided extensive responses to those criteria, again in the staff report, and they will go over those responses tonight. Right here, I'm just going to focus on what they're requesting and the standards for variance approval. So here are the 6 variances that are being requested, consolidated all on one slide here. The first is reduction of the required parking lot drive aisle. So this is internal to the site. The drive aisle that they're proposing would be 21.5 instead of the standard of 24 feet. The reduction of the minimum driveway separation from Ivy, they're proposing 36.75 feet when the standard is 50. And again, that's the request that also you can take in the access limitation exception standards to go over that. So there's actually kind of 2 sets of criteria for that specific one. Number 3 is to increase the maximum impervious surface from 70 to 92%. Number 4 is to reduce the minimum required landscaping in the R2 zone, because it's a residential zone, and to reduce the minimum required landscaping parking lots from 15 to 10. I know those are kind of two sides of the same coin, right? But they are 2 distinct standards, so we do have to separate them and list them both. And then 6 would be to allow the number of parking stalls in a bank before a landscape island is required from 8 to 11. Okay, there are 6 total standards and criteria that Planning Commission needs to consider when considering approval for major variances. I am going to read them. They are lengthy but important. Number 1, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances apply to the property which do not apply generally to other properties in the city and within the same zone. These exceptional or extraordinary circumstances result from tract size or shape, topography, or other circumstances over which the owners of the property have no control. Actions of previous owners do not constitute other exceptional or extraordinary circumstances. With this one quickly, I will just again point out that we do kind of have that split zoning between the north side and south side of campus, so something to consider. Number 2, the variance is necessary to assure that the applicant maintains substantially the same property rights as are possessed by the owners of other property in the city and within the same zone. Number 3 is granting of this variance will not be materially detrimental to the intent or purposes of the city's comprehensive plan or the development code. Number 4 is granting of this variance would not be materially detrimental to other property within the same vicinity. Number 5 is the variance requested is the minimum variance which will alleviate the hardship to the property. And number 6 is the exceptional or unique conditions of the property which necessitate the issuance of a variance were not caused by the applicant or the applicant's employees or relatives.
Brianna?
Yes,
Just
sir.
a quick question on those. So are we considering each one of the variances on its own merit standalone 6 times? So we're going to probably weigh in 6 times as a commission? Thumbs up or thumbs down on each one?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to clarify. Thanks.
Yes. If we have more detailed questions when we come to that, we can address that. But yes, that's true. Okay. In terms of public and agency comments, this was a type 3, so public notice was sent out on July 23rd, and no public comments were received, so no one in the neighborhood provided any comment. We did receive agency comments, and those are detailed in the staff report. There were no overarching big concerns with the project. There are a few conditions of approval that the agency provided. They're pretty standard, and here are the conditions attached to the potential approval. You can find them in the staff report, but they are that the utilities will be capped or otherwise decommissioned. They'll need to install another ADA parking stall. There's a few, but they would need another one due to the total parking count, and that'd be reviewed by Clackamas County. The fire district conditions of construction apply. We would need that confirmation of site distance at the new access. Public Works confirmation of storm water facilities on site. There's dry wells existing on site. So we just want to make sure that they're working. We will need, similar to, any site plan application, this one is specific to parking lots, but it's basically a site plan application that kind of wraps up the project. So that will be a type 1 that's reviewed at the staff level. So that needs to be approved before they can actually go in and do the work. And lastly, the public alley from Holly to Ivy will remain functional and unobstructed. So overall, based on the application submitted and the facts, findings, and conclusions of the staff report, planning staff recommend that the Planning Commission consider approval of application CUP 25-01 and VAR 25-01 subject to the identified conditions of approval. And I can take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
So I assume that the part of the Public Works review was the stormwater runoff, and you said that there's dry wells on the property?
There are
And that
existing
those
dry
are more, are those appropriate for the use for collecting moisture from the runoff from the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we have the engineer applicant team here too, so I bet it can expand on that too.
I was just going to add a few things as well, just to summarize. Brianna, thank you. I think part of the uniqueness of this application for the variances here, very unique circumstance in that there's a C1 zone to the south, which does not require any parking. Brianna covered that, but just to emphasize that operationally, The church, given its history, is really more of a commercial use than it is a multifamily type of activity. The other part here is churches are pretty unique in their operational aspects. We trust that the parking demand is what they're saying it is. That actually benefits the neighborhood by reducing impacts on street parking by doing the right thing and actually having a parking area on the site. The drive access width issue, if you look at the space of the parking spaces, they're 9 by 18, so 9 by 18 feet, so they're full-size spaces. So maneuvering still would not be an issue, in our opinion, based on the fact that spaces themselves are they're large. And Kurt from Kern McLeod can speak to the drywall issue that Commissioner Hutchinson mentioned about the impervious surface issue.
If there are no questions from planning, I think we can turn to, we have one question.
I didn't see a lighting plan of any kind for the parking lot. Are they not going to have this?
We didn't receive one, and we don't have a standard in our code that requires parking lots to be lit, so none proposed.
Okay. So at this point, we'd like to invite the applicant to come up and present.
Coming up. I'm Kurt McLeod. I'm a member of the church. This is Aaron Adami, the pastor. So interesting that...
And 2 staff members. These are associate pastors.
Interesting enough, in 1975, my father-in-law was here with Jay Hoffman, the pastor at the time, requesting the same variance and conditional uses. So he was 46, I'm 70. I waited a little longer to do this. So, I don't know what questions you have. Our intent is to develop the remaining lot in this half block to be consistent with the rest of the block. In fact, we have proposed some improvements that we will make to the rest of the block, such as complete the islands that right now we have a deficient island where the asphalt goes right to the sidewalk line. We're going to be making all of the treed islands that are along Fifth Avenue be consistent. We're going to be adding the wheel stops that are required for parking, so we'll make sure we have those on both sides of the parking lot. But our general request tonight is if we're permitted to just complete development of that half block to be consistent with the rest of the block. I don't know if we can present anything unique to you. Our church has been in place for 130 years. It's a long time prior to the codes and standards. Interesting enough, I think the first codes came into play just a few years before they made that request for a variance in 1975. So they had to address that at the time. There's a half a block here that's zoned for high-density residential, which is unique. The only thing that's left in that half block is one lot. So that one lot could have 4 houses in it or 4 units in a maybe multi-story facility. But we think that it would be much more appropriate for the area and for our use if we were allowed to build it into parking.
So Kurt, in considering the approval of one of the items, specifically item 2, which is the new access point onto Fifth, how will you shape that driveway, or will you shape that driveway to ensure that it's right turn only? If that's planned?
It'll be signed. We'll make sure that it's signed. It's the same as the access on the Holly Street side. The same parking lot has the same requirements, right in, right out.
Okay.
So just signs, and we'll have on the sign. It'll not allow entrance from Ivy Street. It'll only allow entrance from eastbound Fifth Avenue, and exit only eastbound onto Fifth Avenue. So it's signs only.
All right. And at the risk of asking an obvious question, with the 4 existing, I think it's 4 or 5 existing, in and outs of that property, why the additional one?
Well, simply the logistics of the parking lot layout make it to where we need access from both ends of those rows of stalls. We have the alley on the south side, which provides good access. In fact, we've provided 5 additional feet, which is what the fire department ask for that maneuvering space. To provide, we looked at providing internal circulation, but boy, that just eats up a lot of parking spaces to do that. So we would lose maybe 4 or more parking spaces just to have that traffic loop around to use one of the existing access points, which would then be a conflict. I think the traffic would be in conflict with itself.
So it's more of a design criteria for you to add that Fifth Avenue.
It would be function, and it's functioning for us on the other side too, because it's basically that's how we're using it now. And so it would be obviously design, but it would be function. We'd be using that mostly for exiting out.
Okay.
We did consider alternate layouts for the parking lot, but we didn't consider anything that was feasible, I think, for access points. We looked at diagonal parking, which would have been our preference. However, we just repaved the parking lot 2 years ago and restriped the parking lot, so it would be difficult to go to diagonal parking at this point.
Understood. Any questions from other commissioners at this point?
How's your feeling about when the church isn't using the parking lot, the community using the parking lot?
How do we feel about it?
Yeah.
We love it. I mean, obviously there was the car show just this last Saturday, and when Frank was around, he had his committee that would come and knock on our door and ask if they could use our parking lot, and we were super happy to let them use it. And they were going to use it this last Saturday, but evidently they didn't because I think it was so hot. But that's one of the unique, I think, contributions that we get to make back to the community is that they can use our parking lot, and I think the community appreciates it that we let them use it when it's a non-church function. Of course, we use the parking lot too, like we do a trunk or treat in there during Halloween, and the community comes and gathers in our parking lot. So as our church grows, as the city grows, the community grows, then we just need the space to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, parking is definitely a thing as we grow.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of asks here in this application, and so it kind of I search for reasons to say yes because we're going to make this work over here. So yeah, this is good. Are we going to have lighting in this at all?
There's lighting on the building now
Okay.
that shines into the parking lot, and there's 2 lights on that side. But right now that we just redid the lighting on the building to LED, and it is bright over there at night. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, I asked about lighting. I live next to an industrial place that has lighting that my lighting bill has gone down in my house because I don't have to turn my lights on anymore.
I mean, it's like a little bit of a double-edged sword there, because if you put too much light, then the neighbors complain.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, so it's, I don't know, we haven't gotten a complaint yet about our lighting now. So
All right, okay. But we're not adding any, is that right?
that's not in the plan
Okay, good
currently,
deal.
no.
All right.
I would add too, I mean, this is both a plan to expand our parking lot for current need, as Dawn recently said earlier, but also we're interested in expanding our facilities as well in the future. So it's not just about our current need, but also setting up for future expansion as well. But that's a whole other meeting.
No, I'm all about that. I go to a church that we've built new, we've outgrown where we're at,
Right.
and now we're going to move again. So
Right. We're trying to take the right steps.
Yeah, so
we don't have
it's
to undo something,
no matter what the state of Oregon says about churches not being viable, I'm glad you guys are viable, and I'm glad you're in the center of our little town. So
For sure. Yeah.
it's
we're
a
growing, so we're
very,
thankful
very
for that.
good and healthy thing as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, we're glad you're here.
Yeah. We are too.
We recognize that we're asking for quite a few asks, and we've considered all the requirements. It's just very difficult to incorporate those on one small piece of the parking lot and try to make it compatible so the neighborhood looks consistent.
I think for me, the sticking point for me on number 2 is just directional curbing to ensure that it's one way only, just because you are going to be a short block and people take that left turn down onto 5th pretty quick. So if people did decide, oh, it's just a sign and I'm going to go this way, it could set a different precedence than what the rest of the business community has to adapt to in terms of those footages from the intersection. But you say one of your exits already has that now, and I'm assuming that it's never been an issue that
Been
you've
that
heard
way
of.
for decades and hasn't been an issue.
All right, and Canby PD would probably agree with that, I'm assuming. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Wasn't that part of the traffic scope too?
Well, the traffic, DKS, of course, reviewed that right in, right out. The challenge with making the curb directional is that we've got the right in as well as the right out. You know, a little island would be the way to do that if we had enough room to contend with, but we really don't. So if you look at the other driveways, it's really just a throat across the planter strip and then crossing the sideline.
I see. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Craig, you're awfully quiet, way out and wherever you are.
Nope, I think you hit it. I'm with Dan on this. Having the ability for the city to use that parking lot, I think is a big plus for when the church is not using it.
Great. All right, well, at this point then, unless there's any other evidence you'd like to offer.
Well, I would add one thing.
Sure.
That even long before Aaron came to our church, we had a kind of a long-term master plan. We've purchased most of the houses on the south side of 4th Avenue. So our intent was to maybe someday come back to the city requesting vacation of 4th Avenue, building a large parking lot that's a joint benefit for Waite Park and for the church. So that's our long-range plan. That's our 50-year plan that Walt Daniels and our group have worked with for decades. So we're partially along that path. It would be interesting, I think, if we were to vacate the street, take advantage of that to provide more parking, all that could support the church as well as the park.
Great, thank you. Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to put up a small sign somewhere on there stating public parking hours? Just so that the public knows that it's available for them when you're not in service?
I mean, I think we'd be willing to do that. I think the people who live here already know. They park there all the time, and yeah, I don't think it's there's no sign they can't. There's no sign saying it's private property, stay off or something like, you know what I mean? So people park there and hang out for a few hours and use it. And I mean, people from the fair come and park in our parking lot. So I haven't seen a reason to do that because there's nothing directing them saying they can't do it.
Yes.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
The only thing with that is we do run into periodically, we have a funeral or a wedding. And so we have to we know everyone's going to park there for the Saturday market or whatever. So on those rare occasions, we have to kind of sign off that there is a funeral. So, you know, an old lady doesn't have to walk 3 blocks down the street to get to the funeral she's attending. So I think basically it's public parking all the time. And then on the rare occasion, we make a note that there's an event that day. So if there was a sign saying there was always public parking at a certain time, I don't know if we could actually
Facilitate
accommodate
that.
because of the occasional Saturday events that churches have to do.
Good enough? Okay. All right, so at this point, I am going to see if there are any other proponents or opponents of the project. I don't see any, and I don't see any online. Therefore, there's no need for a rebuttal. So we will officially close the public hearing at this point, and then deliberate as a planning commission body, and then render a decision here shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Wonderful. I learned so much about my own project.
Okay. Planning Commission. Thoughts? Commissioner Hutchinson, we'll start with you, put you on the spot.
I'm going to check through the materials real quick before I comment.
Roger that. Vice Chair Ewert?
Okay, so the way I would like to do this, Brianna, if you could bring up the the list.
You want the variance criteria?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, got a bit of
Okay.
the beginning of them, and we'll go to the next slide.
Okay, so here we go. I guess the only thing that I want to make real clear is that whenever we do anything like this, especially with the magnitude of the asks that are here, is that we got to be very, very, very clear in what we're doing and setting precedents, because we never know what's going to come down the pike and who's going to ask for what and so on and so forth. So we've got to be very clear as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. So standards and criteria on the variances in the CMC 1653, the exceptional or extraordinary circumstances apply to the property which do not apply generally to other properties in the city and within the same zone. I think that this property stands out, in my opinion, just because of its location. We struggle with parking downtown, and this particular property offers parking to our downtown and the viability of our downtown that other properties do not. So that is one reason why I am willing to go along with the applicant and some of these things that they're asking for, because it does stand out. So that in number one. Number two, and the variance is necessary to assure that the applicant maintains a substantially the same property rights. I think that if somebody else had that size of a parking lot in the downtown area, we would probably go with the same situation. So I'm good on that. Can we go to the next page, please? Granting of this variance will not be materially or detrimentally to the intent or the purpose of the city's comprehensive plan. I do not believe that we're harming the comprehensive plan at all. Number four, granting of this variance will not be materially or detrimentally to the property with any of the same vicinity. I think that it meets that. The variance is requested as a minimum variance, which will alleviate the hardship. We're fine there. The exceptional or unique conditions of the property, which is necessitated, I think we're fine there. So I think as far as the variances are considered, we're good. It meets all of that. If we can go on to the next one, Brianna.
Those are all the criteria for variances.
And then go to the
Utility comments?
no,
Conditional use?
The actual variances?
yeah. And back it the other way, the variance. Okay, so the requested reduction, and this is almost hard for me to read, reduction of the required parking lot, drive aisles, hopefully you don't have too many big pickups parking in your parking lot, because they might have a little bit of trouble turning around in there, but I think they'll be okay. Dawn was touting the fact that they're normal-sized parking spots, but the drive aisles are narrow, but I think that'll work out. Hopefully, they're all good Christian people parking in your lot. The reduction of the minimum driveway separating, I think we discussed that. I think it's. Are you okay on that one? Okay, so we're good there. The increase in the maximum pervious surface. Being the fact that the parking lot is already there, I think that we're going to be okay there. We handled the storm drain water. If the city is okay with that, I think that'll be fine. The reducing of the landscaping, I think we're already there. It'll match what's there already, so I don't have a problem with that. Reducing the minimum required landscaping in the parking lots. I'm not a big fan of islands in the parking lots, so I'm good with that. Increase the allowed number of parking stalls. Because of the islands from 8 to 11, I'm good with that. So, I'm on board with all of those. So if anybody's got anything, I don't have any discussion on any of those points. I'm good to go with all of them.
Okay. And that's what I guess I'd like to do right now is just get a temperature check from Commissioner Hutchinson and Commissioner Llewellyn on any of the 6 variance requests. Is there anything that stands out?
For me, nothing in particular stands out, but I mean, it seems like every time that we attach a new piece of property on to this campus, that it's pulling the rules from prior and pulling them from prior and pulling them from prior. And we have those islands to put trees in for the sake of cutting down on heat in urban environments, which all this pavement will certainly contribute to. And because the weather's been getting a little bit more crazy lately, that's one of the reasons why we have all the non-permeable surface requirements. It seems like a lot of variance to me for what is essentially a large swath of asphalt that could be redesigned at any point to accommodate code requirements. So that's kind of where I sit at this point.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Llewellyn.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of variances for what we're talking about here, but I don't see any issues here with it really. I think it makes sense. It's good for the town. The town needs more parking. I just don't see any issues here really.
Okay. So then, as I understand it, unless there's more discussion to follow up, Commissioner Hutchinson, on those, is there more discussion needed on these items? Because I think what we're going to do is to tackle them each one at a time and a roll call style vote once there's a motion made. So I wanted to make sure we are actually going to be able to do that.
Well, I mean, do you require unanimity or?
Nope, I just want to make sure we vet anything out that maybe he's got you hung up.
I mean, honestly, just because you want it to match what's there, it doesn't seem like reason enough for any of it. And especially when we're talking about the driveway's proximity to a major roadway within the city limits, right? Essentially that splits, east from west for us. I've mentioned the other things that I've talking about, and the landscaping is all part of that. And it just seems like a great opportunity to actually come into line with current design standards as opposed to asking for further exceptions. And that's just how I feel about it.
Understood. Thank you. So as to, I guess, line item number 1, variance number 1, is there a motion on allowing 2 drive aisles at the width of 21.5 feet, 2.5 feet, 2.5 fewer feet less than the standard drive aisle width of 24 feet?
Okay, I'm not really sure what you're asking. You're asking for a motion, so I'm not what.
So are we going to allow the variance on line item number 1?
I would say for myself, yes.
All right, so do we have a motion?
I would second it. I think Dan just gave you the motion.
He did, yes. I guess he didn't say I motion that we accept.
Okay, Don, help us out here. Can we, are we going to vote on each one of these things? Is that the way we're going to handle this?
I mean, we can do it that way. I think what Chair Ellison is trying to get to is because of the limited number of planning commissioners here tonight, there needs to be plurality to receive an approval tonight. And I think maybe there's discussion or a motion on these, and you could go either way and say, do you support 1 to 6? I guess from the applicant's perspective, and I'm going to speak for them, that if this was a major item for them, it may not be as easy for them just to like, oh, we'll go without, let's say theoretically not everybody's in support of that, which staff is in support, but that would be an indication to them that there would be some redesign elements necessary, and I would rather have them do a continuance versus a vote if there is something significant that comes out of that discussion.
So would you rather us then do just a yay, nay on 1 through 6, no motion? So that
or
we
you
get a
could
sense?
you could go into discussion and just say, you know, that might be a better way to do it than, you know, like, is there support? And then you could figure out how significant those items are, because we can't speak for the applicant on, you know, we're hopeful as staff that you all are in support of 1 to 6, but one of those might make a difference on what this looks like, and we would need clarity. I'm not sure if they will be whole in the end if one of these was not approved, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Just for the sake of how citizens will view this meeting, sorry, no, you're good. Just for the sake of how other citizens will view this in the future, I would suggest that you guys talk about each variance separately, discuss it, either yay or nay, and then do a motion saying, do we approve 1 through 6? And if you have any changes or edits that you'd like to make to that, then suggest that after. 1 through 6 with changes to just as an example. That's how I would suggest.
Yeah, and to the, you know, the vast number of Cambinians that are watching this, I've never had to sit through one of these before or be on a board where we had this many variances at one time. So that's where I think a little of the trepidation comes in on how you want to tackle these, or what is acceptable in terms of, if legal were sitting here, what would they say is good to go or not?
And some of this is going to depend on the discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
if we get to a point of like, what is the numeric standard? Is that achievable? And I think that may be, I guess from a discussion perspective, and I'm not sure if that's what Emily was saying or not, but it feels a bit like there should be some discussion around these before you race ahead on.
Yeah.
You should get a sense of where this is all going. I think that might be the fairest to the applicant.
Okay, so for discussion's sake, commissioners, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Hutchinson. If I were to ask yay or nay on all 6 of these, would you be nay on all 6 of these?
I would be nay on all 6.
Roger that. Okay, and Commissioner Llewellyn, where do you sit on all 6 of these?
I would be yay.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Chair?
Yes, on all 6.
Okay.
Could I interject on what might make this a yay for all four of you all? That might be helpful for direction for the applicant.
Say one more time,
So
sorry.
I'm just saying, there's three to four, or 3 to 1. And so just maybe getting to of the 6 items, maybe getting a bit more focused on what the elements would be that would change that.
And if you're a nay?
Yes. Yes.
What would change it?
Yes.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. You were, sorry, going to make some notes real quick. So, Commissioner Hutchinson, what would make line item 1, variance 1, I'm sorry, turn it to a yay for you? Follow the standard, I'm assuming.
Standard,
Okay. And then same with number 2? And I would assume that number 3 through 6 also follow suit?
I'd be willing to grant a variance on 4. I'm sorry.
4.
But mainly because it seems to me like 5 covers it. Yeah. I mean, excuse me. I mean, we're talking about 50-year plans here, and we're not redesigning a parking lot because you just striped it. I mean, I just don't find that to be a compelling argument. We have standards for non-permeable surfaces, we have standards for shade trees, and we have standards for distance from intersections to driveways. And I mean, this is all a large, I walk by it frequently. It's a blank canvas, or it could be. And so that's mainly my opposition to it, is that I see these as a chain of variances that are just extending, and then will probably extend around the side of the building when they acquire the adjacent property. And they're also talking about bridging a city street. And, you know, it's like, how far are we going to carry these variances? And it just seems like this would be a classic opportunity to come into compliance with how we design parking lots. I mean, or we could do a rezone. You know, make it all commercial. I mean, that would blunt a lot of the argument. So, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at. I mean, it just seems like we're doing a lot of bending to accommodate something that could be fairly easily accommodated.
Okay. Question for planning staff.
So some options here to consider. We have a lot of opening space on September 8th for the hearing on that date. So I just have a few, I haven't got to that point of the discussion tonight, but we basically just have, I have an update on our community summit, basically, is what we've got at this point. So that could be definitely hearing number 1 item if this were to be continued. I just think, to the benefit of the applicant, it's a brutal course to go down. If this is denied, it goes to council, and then it has to be reviewed and probably remanded back to you all. You're going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
In the end, you will have to, and it's much better if the applicant, and I can't speak for the applicant, but we would need, I don't know how quickly we need the materials, Brianna, to get to the 8th.
10-day packet.
10, okay. So we would need
This
that.
Friday.
Okay, that's really quick. And then the next hearing would be September 22nd, so that would give maybe a bit more room. I don't know how long it would be for the applicant to revise materials. There'd also would be more people here. There's been some unusual circumstances of not having as many planning commissioners here as well. So it might be a push to do September 8th. I don't know if that's a push or not, but September 22nd would be the next hearing date, and we are planning to do, we have 1 item on there, but we can do that second, which is the comprehensive plan transportation system plan goals and policy review, but that could come second, so we could do it to a date certain for September 22nd.
And they would have to have their materials in by the 12th, technically, is the day they would be published. So hopefully the day before that, so that staff can look at them.
So September 12th, any rework they would need to do as a result of a continuance would need to be in by, that's when it would need to be in by, so that it could
Exactly.
make the next agenda
Yes.
for end of September.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
And maybe to, not to belabor this point, but I don't know if it would be valuable for the applicant to give a bit more on the alternatives that were considered. I mean, I know the code standards is part of this, but
I can tell you the only hangup for me is number 2. And that's the one I'm struggling with. I get it on the 92%. I get it on the landscaping. I understand that. But just with as much curb is there, I think that's something that can be accommodated. And that would be something that I would ask of, I don't care who it is, any applicant. It's got to be somewhat consistent, but everything else, I don't have any big heartburn over.
so I mean, with that all being said, I mean, I think September, I mean, I'm speaking for the applicant again, which since this is closed, but I think it would be best to put it to a date certain to September 22nd and continue this item
I
versus
agree.
denial tonight, which will send him into a brutal course of
Yeah, and I don't think
bouncing
anybody wants
back
to
and
do
then
that.
going to council and then having to go back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to do that. So will you then, what's the process for
I think you
continuance?
would have to make a motion to continue this. One of the planning commissioners would have to make a motion, someone would second it, and then you would vote to continue the item to September 22nd for further discussion and deliberation on this process, on the variance and conditional use
Copy
process.
that. Okay, so do we have a motion on a continuance?
I don't think it should be continued, personally.
If it's not continued, it would be denied.
Denied.
Because
right.
of the number of planning commissioners, yeah.
I would make the motion that we continue this over to the 22nd and allow time for the applicant to address these issues.
I'll second.
All right, so by a vote, starting with Commissioner Llewellyn, that would be a yay, I'm assuming, since you made.
Yay, yep.
And I'm a yay. Commissioner Hutchinson?
Yay.
Commissioner Ewert? So 3-1, we will continue to a date certain of, what was the date, September 22nd. All right. Thank you to the applicants and thank you, commissioners. And we've got one more item to move on to, and that is housing production strategy with Planning Director Hardy and Emma presenting, and take it away.
We're going to take just like a 3-minute break.
And we'll take a 3-minute break before all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. And as mentioned earlier, we're going to turn it over to Planning Director Hardy and Emma Porquillo for Housing Production Strategy presentation.
Good evening, Commissioner Ellison, Chair Ellison. I'm going to turn this over to Emma for the presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am back here again with the Housing Production Strategy. I know we were here fairly recently. Tonight is the final draft of the Housing Production Strategy that we have brought to you all. The majority of this document we've revisited several times. So the intent of tonight's presentation is just, once again, a little bit of a refresher. Those 3 new strategies that we proposed approximately a month ago at the last work session, some of those have been modified a little bit, so I'll go over those 3 in a little bit of detail, and then from there, I'm really going to lean on you all to pick out what you want to re-review or have questions you have about specific segments. So we have a fairly brief presentation here. Don, do you want to say anything else at the top? Okay. So our agenda for tonight, as I mentioned, a brief overview of the background and the strategies of the housing production strategy. I will go over the recent changes as well as our next steps. I will then review the staff recommendation and we can discuss any questions. And then finally, the goal for tonight is for you all to issue a recommendation to City Council regarding the adoption of the housing production strategy. As Don mentioned, this is adopted via resolution, so it's not an ordinance, but it will be a recommendation. So for our newest commissioner, and to remind everybody, what is the housing production strategy? So the housing production strategy is a framework of tools to determine actions and policies the city can implement to promote housing production, affordability, and housing choice, being it the various types of housing that you can, promoting more choices for types of housing. And this is especially as it relates to the needs identified in our housing needs analysis. The 1-minute overview of our housing needs analysis is we determined in the city what land do we have currently. We are expected to grow per the state over the next 20 years. We determined that amount of growth and what housing do we need to accommodate that growth that we are expected to see. And that's what the findings of our housing needs analysis told us. I also want to mention that since our last meeting, the DLCD, the state, did issue a few decisions regarding some of the housing needs analyses, which give us some indication of where the bar is starting to be. The Malala HPS was actually remanded, which means it was sent back to the city and was not approved. They gave them 5 conditions of revisions. They were largely to address accessible housing, provide more clarity and specificity on their financial strategies, and more. They also approved the Happy Valley HPS, and that was approved, but was approved with conditions with an extensive decision letter. And those conditions generally relate to wanting to see more midpoint reporting and the details of the impacts of each strategy. So just kind of showing more of the permutations of each of those strategies. So that gives us a little bit better of a picture of really what DLCD is expecting, and I think that's seen and reflected in our current draft of the housing production strategy. After tonight's recommendation, we will be going to City Council on I have 7. Oh, we were at a City Council work session after we came to you all, and that was on July 16th, and our hearing at City Council for the HPS is planned for October 1st. So.
And just to add, we have had a work session with council as well, so there's some, Emma will reflect that during this discussion, what their comments were at work session.
Sorry. So the review of Canby's housing landscape, so this sets the stage for what is the housing production strategy intending to address, where the gaps that we've identified in the HNA. The HNA determined that we have challenges with the amount and the affordability of housing in Canby. Housing in Canby is not affordable to many, and the hope is to focus on providing folks with a variety of housing choices. More housing is needed based on our 20-year population forecast, and we see a notable percentage of residents in Canby, over 29% of households that are severely rent burdened, meaning they spend 50% of their income on rent. And I also have listed here the median home price in Canby from 2022, which is $560,000. Uh-oh, oops. So the overview of the HPS, it is a state mandated document to address housing needs identified in the HNA. It is a framework to promote the development of needed housing, and so the framework is the strategies of, these are broadly the tools, actions, and policies to promote affordability. These strategies within the framework are set up in the document to then are planned in phases for implementation. So there's more steps after the housing production strategy. This document is to say, here is our plan, and here are the actions and policies within the plan that we are planning to change. And then once we get to the implementation year listed in the document, then we go into the minutia of, how exactly, what are the exact policies and everything along those lines. So the implementation of the strategies is planned within the next 4 to 5 years per the state requirements. We have tailored them the best we can to Canby's community, and we have worked with DLCD, and they have awareness that this is, every community is unique, and you can't copy and paste everything from one to the next. And the last, as I had just mentioned, most strategies, or nearly all except for one, will be implemented by a formal ordinance process when they go to implementation. So you all will have another chance to review them, as will City Council, once more context is added to them. So here is the first half of the list of the strategies that we've proposed. You all have seen these strategies before. Some of the adoption years may have shifted a little bit later, as we're just starting to realize what the work plan truly looks like in the next 4 years. So first one is a developed process for identifying land to upzone. So where can we encourage more infill development? Allow cottage clusters, we completed that in the fall. Identify opportunities to streamline PUDs, create incentives to encourage diverse housing via PUDs, modify SDCs, that is underway, and I'm sure Dawn has many updates for you all on that. Education on permitting for property owners and developers, specifically for ADUs, reduce minimum lot sizes. We did a little bit of that with the last iteration of code amendments that were adopted in 2024, but we expect more to come in later phases. Increase building heights to allow more density. The second half is update residential zones, and this is to make them consistent with state laws, including requirements that mobile homes be allowed in the R1 and R1.5 zones. Update design standards, basically so that the design standards can allow more affordable development, and that they maybe are simpler than what is currently allowed. Inventory and encourage preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing. This is primarily focused on mobile home parks and supporting the preservation of those. Partner with the county and seek public-private partnerships for affordable housing. Deferred SDC payments, SDC waiver for affordable housing, and CET waivers. And so those last three are the latest additions that we will go over in a bit more detail here. So these are the newest strategies, as I mentioned, that we brought back to you at the last work session. The strategy 1 and 2 are nearly the same as what we last proposed, and strategy 3 has shifted a little bit. And I will go into detail on all 3 of them. As you may remember, we added these strategies based on input we got from DLCD that they were encouraging us that we need to include more financially backed strategies that address affordable housing, being 0 to 60% MFI, which is median family income for the community. So as Dawn mentioned, we went to City Council and brought the same recommendations and shared your comments with City Council regarding the new strategies that we proposed. And this was the feedback that we received from City Council. The first was they had several kind of questions and discussion around what are the financial impacts, how to, if something is an affordable housing development, how does that affect their property taxes? And and what are the long-term impacts for project funding. The second was that they shared that they prefer to focus on entry-level homeownership opportunities over apartments for affordable housing projects that are receiving some form of subsidy. And the goal there is to be able to create long-term community investment. You know, the investment is being put in, but can we create long-term investment with that and have folks that are staying in the community and, you know, becoming a part of the Canby community and not just coming and going is the primary goal. And the last was the role and value of CET funds. So we just discussed what is the construction excise tax, what is its role and function. So those were the three main areas of feedback from council. So the first new strategy is the STC payment plan from the Bancroft Bonding Act. This allows us to allow developers to finance public improvements through bonding for up to 10 years. And so they basically set up a payment plan with us for the duration that's decided. And that payment plan includes a prime rate mortgage rate. So they are paying the amount with interest on the SDCs, but they are getting to put the payment over a longer period of time, which can, you know, create more options for them in terms of their financing. The targeted housing types for this are middle housing and multifamily housing. So basically something that is more affordable than your standard new single-family home in Canby. With applicants identifying sale or rental price points. And this will be reviewed and approved by City Council on a case-by-case basis. We do have one project that is currently going through this process, and they will be going to City Council on October 1st.
September 17th, that's
September
hopefully,
17th.
yes, yeah. It's a townhome project you all approved.
And so therefore, functionally, they appear like townhomes, but they're technically condos, but semantics. But they're talking, I can't remember the exact amount, but a fairly affordable entry-level home price.
And this is not for like what you're giving input on necessarily tonight, but price point being $399,000 to $400,000 per individual fee ownership unit, which again, that's a price point that they chose, which is more affordable given the current affordability index in Canby.
Thanks, Don. And so the hope is that, you know, a project like that could provide a good first home ownership ownership opportunity for somebody who is moving out of a standard home.
And maybe just on the Bancroft financing, so 7.6 is the prime rate right now. So over 10 years, the city would gain $150,000 in principal and interest. So really, the city doesn't lose anything in that equation.
So the next one, again, is very similar to what we provided to you last time. This is full or partial STC waiver for affordable housing. So what we are proposing is to waive a portion or all of the city STCs for qualified affordable housing projects. When we say qualified, we mean basically they're serving the affordability amount or as determined by the % median family income served. They're on a long-term basis. So, you know, we're making sure that they're providing this for a significant duration of time, 10, 20, 30 years, and a management structure. Basically, there's a formal entity behind the housing. The city does currently allow this waiver, and it's in our code currently, that council can approve this for very low-income persons or families per HUD criteria. So we are recommending that this still go to council, but we provide more specifics and clarity on criteria so that if you are an affordable housing developer, you can maybe have more certainty earlier in the process than at the point where you get to your SDCs, which could make a large difference for them. So targeted housing types for this are affordable housing, subsidized affordable housing being 0 to 60% MFI. We've been talking about 0 to 60% MFI as the low income housing, so this maybe would give a little bit more of a cushion on that as well.
And just another point, this would be like targeted for entry-level home buyers, like Habitat for Humanity would rise to an example of what this would look like. Fee ownership over a duration of time where the end result is the person owns that over time, and it becomes a principal and interest value added for those folks, and it has a management structure behind it. Faith-based would be another possible situation. We've not seen that yet in Canby, although there have been some faith-based community folks that have approached us on doing multi-structured commercial downstairs or office downstairs as part of the church operation, and upstairs having units above that with, again, a structured denomination that would be supporting that. So that's really critical here on the side of it as the management side, that there actually is a structure so the city doesn't end up managing the project, but it's being managed by the entity.
Thank you, Dawn. And so last, the conditions, basically the conditions that I already mentioned for qualified affordable housing would be required here, and those specifics would be figured out at the time of implementation. And there would be a condition that the approval is still by city council, and that the city's current financial situation or operational budget would factor into their, would be able to be factored into their decision of if they are to issue this waiver. And the last new strategy is strategy O, which is to waive CET fees for affordable housing. This has shifted a bit since we last brought this to you. Previously, we were talking about setting aside a certain amount of these funds to be available to affordable housing projects. However, now we are saying affordable housing projects can waive this. This is a little bit simpler from the city on a financial side of that. We're not setting aside money and keeping it and having to figure out, who qualifies. This is just if you are a qualified project, you can waive these fees. So the CETs are construction excise tax. It's a flexible funding source derived from new development. It is for residential development only. Is charged, and they're charged $1 per square foot for new residential development. So essentially the function is the same as STC waiver, where if you are a qualified project and you meet this criteria, council can choose to waive this fee for you. And again, this is the same criteria that I had just spoke about for the STC waiver. So housing 0 to 80% MFI, long-term affordability, council can reviews this and chooses to issue this based on a series of criteria, including what is the current financial situation. You want to add something, Dawn?
And that could be a waiver or partial waiver, again, tied back to city council review, tied back to the budget, that like this being in context of that. I think there needs to be an awareness of that the city does not have is flush with cash. So we have our own, budgetary considerations to make, but this is again a framework for all these, as Emma mentioned, would be going through Planning Commission, City Council, and further ordinances. This is a framework that establishes the framework for these items that would be implemented over a 4-year period. All of them would be reviewed and tested. Some of them may evolve. Some of them may come off the list over that 4-year period and be replaced with other things. This is and that hopefully helps bookend this a bit.
Yeah, and I'll just add that normally a CET fee is significantly a less cost than a STC. We're charging $1 per square foot for a CET. So let's just say if you have a brand new single family home that's 2,000 square feet, that's a $2,000 charge for the CET versus a new single family home. STCs are in the range of $17,000. Of course, it shifts for multifamily, right? Because the housing is more condensed, so it doesn't increase at the 17 times dwelling unit. But that gives you a bit of a sense of how much the fees are relative to the project. So those are the 3 new strategies that we've proposed and the final iteration of the proposal for those. So our next steps are to bring your recommendation to City Council at the October 1st hearing. From there, once the HPS is approved, we then send it to DLCD, and they have 45 days to review it and issue their decision. Simultaneous to their 45-day review, they put the HPS on their website, and there's a public comment period for that as well that anybody is able to comment on. So after those 45 days, we'll be issued a decision from DLCD, approved with conditions, or remanded. And then once the HPS is approved, then shortly thereafter, we are currently implementing some, but the implementation will continue over the next 4 to 5 years. So those are our next steps.
And just the last 3 on the strategies, the financial strategies, were very focused with Department of Land Conservation and Development. They are very focused on those other cities that are going through this exercise right now. We believe that these gives the latitude that to the city, but also provide for the financial encouragement, essentially, to address those medium family income targeted areas that we know we need to address, because our housing needs analysis identifies those as needs in our community. I think without those three, we would be unlikely, and we'd probably get remanded. And the bar is pretty high on this. We've been doing this for about 2.5 years, and we're watching the other jurisdictions go through their exercise and their adoption processes, or like in Malala's case, they're having to redo their parts of theirs. So trying to find a balance here on these in terms of these items on all the strategies, but recognizing that each one of these, as we update our code, which we will be doing, we have some set aside for a code audit that will start beginning of next year. We're also applying for technical assistant grants that just came out from Department of Land Conservation and Development today. We'll be applying for those, which will hopefully help in concurrently updating our code and going back through these items. And if you all are both interested in not only reviewing this as a planning commissioner, but being on an advisory committee, we would love to have you, because that would be part of the code audit and update process as well.
Can I ask a couple of
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Points? So does the potential energy moratorium operate in parallel? Do we just proceed as if, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen on the energy thing, and that may stymie all or some of this no matter what happens, or it may not, and it'll just work itself out between the three entities involved?
The current understanding is that large loads are the ones in effect. Those are 1 megawatt and larger. Those are industries. Load growth, which is residential housing, my understanding will not be affected. This is part of natural load growth. So housing should not be affected by this moratorium, which is for larger loads, which are for, in particular, peak large loads are the concern. Now, we're still working through that. We will have more information on September 17th. There'll be, in this chambers, there'll be a work session with PGE and Bonneville Power will be here, and Canby Public Utility will be here, but in specific, PGE and Bonneville will be speaking about that issue and on target about those issues. And those are some questions we're still asking them about, but our understanding is 1 megawatt and larger is the threshold.
Okay.
But to your point, another spinoff of this, and this is why we have this booked in with the council, even with that, we want to make sure we're looking at this conservatively, where council has that authority to say yay or nay based on the budget of the city, because we don't know financially over time. There's going to be some effect with the moratorium. If the city does in fact initiate that, that would have some effect on the industrial side. And on the revenue side for the city as well.
So then if I was tracking with Emma in the presentation a couple slides back, so you're presenting essentially, was it 3 or 4 different finance options to help facilitate the low-income housing type effort?
And there'll be, I would say, entry-level homes, but they could be lower income as well. But it's both. It's a mix, like the Bancroft Bonding Act. That state law already exists. Council has discretion on that now. There have been some apartments in the city that have already received that several years ago, and even some commercial developments have received that Bancroft Bonding Act payment plan in the city. It's been in existence for a while.
Right, so Bancroft would be one example. The other ones listed are examples of potential methods.
They wouldn't.
But the Planning Commission isn't per se, you're not looking for an endorsement of any one of those per se. It's just that there's mechanisms that the city, at its discretion, at council's discretion, have the opportunity to pursue. And here's a list of 3 that, or 4 that are out there.
And these would all get more attention through an ordinance process. This is, again, a framework, and kind of part of the balance here, and the challenge, to be quite frank, with DLCD is it feels a lot like they want us to tell them exactly what it's going to be. And we all know councils change and dynamics change in cities, but at the same time, we need to have this adopted, or there's consequences to this. There's financial consequences to the city in particular. And given where we're at with the governorship in Oregon and the state of housing, they take it pretty seriously.
Can I add a few more clarifications? So we're proposing all 3 be put into the housing production strategy. So the intent is that they all become a policy option. 1 and 2 are currently policy, are available to somebody today. To Don's point, they're going to get more attention, but they are still having to go, the council is still a filtering mechanism for them. The 3rd one is new, but again, we've left kind of that council filtering as kind of a safety net from our perspective. Does that make sense? Okay.
And so maybe just to add, so if you all, have commentary regarding concerns or what we should add in bookends of this, that's kind of what we're looking for from you all. We want your comments. As you guys are obviously you're going to see this come back on the back end in the next 4 years in ordinances. You will see. And hopefully you might be interested in being involved, like on the, in the code update, in a role, maybe not as a planning commissioner, although we'll work session those here, but there'll be probably an advisory committee as well.
So and you're probably going to hate me for this, but so you have 4 of 7 voting members currently available. Is this something that would, who's the 5th? Craig, me, Michael, and Ewart. She's abstaining for tonight. So 4 of the group. So would it be better to consider having more attendance for something like this, or are you guys good to go with 4 is good enough?
I think 4 is fine. It's, and it doesn't need to be unanimous because it's a recommendation. So it's a different, you're not making a decision on this tonight. You're making a recommendation. So I think your input would be helpful. Pro, con, or, concerns would be, and we'll reflect those back to council, and they're going to have some of the same comments and thoughts because they're going to see this in an resolution format when we take it back to them in October 1st.
Well, just looking at it, it's a lot of this is, and it's to your credit, we've been brought along through this process, so most of this is not new. My only concern is I am not a financial wizard, and so the finance pieces of that, I feel like I would want to study that a little more before I could say, hey, I full-throated recommend this, albeit the Bancroft deals, it sounds like it dyed in the wool, it's done. But the others, I don't really know enough about them to say I could recommend those or not. But in terms of everything else, all the work and all the input and the formatting of everything up to this point, I think we've had buy-in all the while because we've all had input all through the whole daggone thing. So I guess for me, I get the financial arm is the only part that I don't really know how to measure just yet.
So as far as refining the specificity that you were discussing, like say one of the things that we're discussing is minimum lot sizes. We haven't really quantified that yet, have we? Because that's part of the code, that's part of the code discussions going forward. We're going to adjust our ordinances, and that is part of what we are going to do going forward. We're just saying that that's what we're doing. And what the state may do is they're like, well, that's very nice, but we want some numbers. Is that the worry?
That's the discussion. You hit it right on the head. We have done some tweaks to minimum lot sizes already through the PUD process. The updated PUD allows townhome lot sizes to be smaller than they were before. It's similarly things like that. And part of the challenge here is, to be honest with you, until we have an advisory committee and that discusses this, until we have the planning commission input on this, we're not sure where this is all going to go. It's a framework, and if some of these may come off, we may decide we're not doing this, and then we renegotiate a new one item to replace that. I don't know what that new item is. Part of it is it's difficult because it is really a placeholder for us to discuss this further. If we end up at basically being consistent with these strategies, DLCD is going to say, good, checkbox, you're good to go. If they're dissatisfied to some degree, we might have to do more tweaks to other things. It's a negotiation. And I think that's really what this is. And this is not in concrete. Other than these are things that are going to be studied, none of these are by themselves an adopted or resolution that give any effect until they're discussed further and adopted.
Okay. That makes
hopefully that helps. I mean, it's a bit like, and part of the problem is it's evolving with DLCD. They're pushing us more towards that like absolute definity, which is not possible in this process. I mean, this has gone from like aspirational and the historical part to now like you're down to granular. It's like, dude, we don't even know what's going to happen in 4 years exactly. So, I mean, we're trying to frame it up, but we also have a deadline of December 1. I do not want to go past the deadline. I don't know what the consequences are, but they're not going to be good for the city.
Yeah. Matt, to your point too, I wanted to add, I think the financial piece is important, and I think that that's really where this council filtering is kind of like, right, how many do we see, right, how many projects do we see we have no clue, how many do we then, how many meet the criteria, how many do we allow, right, the financial impact we could guess could be from 0 to I don't know, but the numbers can be drastic, and I think that's why we've felt it's important to keep the council filtering in for kind of at the time for that. I get there's a commitment here, so there is some like, okay, we're giving this financial commitment, but we've built in that council filtering to kind of be the guide at the time when it's happening. So it leaves a lot of unanswered questions right now, which I understand is not ideal, but I think that's we've done our best to be able to keep that we've done our best to keep it so that the policies do not go off the rails and that we've lost control, and that we still have the control to say, okay, we've spent too much. Council says, actually, we gave a 200 unit apartment that at the beginning of the year, we no longer have any funds this year to do it. We've run our options dry, perhaps next year.
Right.
Like there's a give and a take.
That's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, what happens if somebody defaults on one of these plans? And then what are we?
Well, and
is the city a lien holder? And
no, that's exactly right. On bankrupt, the one that's coming will have a lien on property that's valued at or above the value of the borrowing. So this is where that goes. Now, how many of these we do each year? It's not infinite.
Got it.
We can't do infinite. I'm just going to be honest with you. This is going to be targeted. You might have a couple a year maybe. I'm guessing. I don't know what we haven't established what that is. But again, it comes down to like, I think at some point it would start to affect the city's financial situation, where you're not getting all that revenue in at once, which would affect projects. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if it makes a slight difference or a difference in people's able to buy a home or not, that seems like it might be worth the effort here, especially in the ever-increasing cost of housing.
Can I just say some things here?
Go ahead, Craig, sorry.
Can I weigh in? This is the finance part is one of the big issues I have on all this, and it's if the town really understood what was going on right now, this chamber would be packed right now. But what happens is, just as it did in the last 40 years, they talked about all this in the 70s, early 80s, passed the comprehensive land use plan, and then, but back then nobody ever thought growth would come, so nobody really worried about it. But what happens is, when you look at the tax base, for every dollar that's coming in on residential, $1.30 is going out. In industrial commercial is just the opposite. Every dollar coming in, 40 cents is going out. So what happens is you get people that just want to keep Canby cute and everything, but they don't realize, and what we're talking here on this new growth, this strategy, this house strategy, is you're going to put growth on steroids in this town. And you know what's going to happen is down the road, you're going to go upside down. The city's already upside down. This is going to continue to go on. This is going to get worse. And then you're going to need the industry and the commercial stuff to help offset that tax base. And that's where all the people that don't want growth anymore come out in the woodwork. And if you don't believe me, come to my house. I'll show you the last 40 years. I will have it year by year. And so, Don, it brings me back to, and we're overdue for this, and it's my fault. I've been gone a lot this year, but we need to sit down in this process. We have got to look at that industrial area master plan. There's got to be some understandings between the city and those property owners out there, because they're going to be the ones that get stuck in all this. And because there's going to be a day when you're going to need that industry, and that's when these rooms are going to be packed with all those people who don't want growth because they see the industrial and commercial as the growth piece. It is not. It is this right here.
And I to your point, Craig, I'm not disputing at all the fact that industry is a big component of the tax base. I mean, that's why we're looking at a growth boundary expansion for the city. I mean, I think these are really narrowly focused items that we're seeing, and I believe the DLCD will not approve this housing production strategy. I'll tell the council this as well. We can go remand and go back through that process, but it's up to us to define these based on what the criteria are, and those criteria are based on your needs, which we have in our housing needs analysis, and based on stakeholder input through that process. So this is our attempt to address those items, to address some of the medium family income, not all of it, but some of it over the next 20 years essentially, and we have to have this framework. This is what the state is requiring us to do, and that's the message I'm conveying. That may not be something that we want to necessarily do, but it's something that we're being asked to do. And so that's the balance that we're trying to do tonight is, and we'll be doing the same thing with the council. But I don't think that's affecting necessarily the industrial side of the coin unless I'm missing something. This is not like we're borrowing against the industry to pay for the residential. That's not the equation here.
What's going to happen is that, all this growth, it's great, but you're going to put the deficit upside down. And then what's going to happen is all the people are going to come out of the woodwork when you need the industry to come in. And now it's going to get prolonged. I think this is going to cost the city a lot of money, in 20, 30 years. It did the last time. This is, now we want all high density coming in here. People aren't going to recognize this place in 10 years, and they're going to wonder what happened because they don't understand it.
Craig,
I'm just telling you what's going to come down the pike here because we just went through it the last 30 years.
Craig, I'm just trying to understand a little bit better. Are you saying that with the growth that we have, that housing would overtake, basically the majority of growth would be, like the land that we are able to grow would be housing, and that we would lose available land to then put commercial and industrial on?
No, I'm saying what happens is, I'm not saying that at all, but what happens is you're going to become more and more desperate for that commercial industrial, and the town's going to hold you hostage to that because they're going to realize, oh my God, the town grew, we can't have this anymore. And so they relate industrial and commercial to growth. They don't relate residents to growth.
Oh, I see.
They don't understand the budget issues here at all.
Sure.
And like Don said, councils come and go, planning commissions come and go. And if we don't address this stuff and have it in clear writing, you're going to go through another 30 years. You wish or those future planning and councils, they weren't fun battles. And what happens is your people that are in that industrial park and the commercial and industrial stuff, they're the ones that end up taking it because they don't know what's going on, and suddenly they're the bad people. And you have to understand industrial and growth boundaries to understand what I'm talking about here. And so I'm looking at this at 30,000 feet now. And I mean, this this kind of growth is going to cost this town a lot of money. And you got to have, and I'm talking about the tax base, you have to have an offset. So somewhere in all this discussion we're having, we better have a plan how we're going to pay for this down the road to balance the tax base, because I haven't heard any discussion on that. And I think the city, from what I understand, they're in the hole again.
I think part of on the urban expansion, Craig, in the concept planning, we have a $250,000 grant from ODOT. In that concept planning for urban growth boundary expansion, there is a financial element to that about how the infrastructure is paid for, et cetera. That is part of that discussion that will happen. I think on the residential side of things, I mean, we have a forecast of about 6,000 residents in 20 years. We know generally the types of housing that's needed in the city. Most of it is still single family. It may look different, maybe single family on a smaller lot. That's a majority. That's what it's going to be in the future. Mixed in with that is the hope that there might be some other housing that would be more affordable. And our charge really here is with council authorization, because we'll see every one of these, that on selected projects that there would be maybe some offsets. And we're not talking about this tonight, but system development charges are going to go up dramatically across the board for everything. So the expense of homes is going to get worse. I would like to see us take a shot at hopefully maintain the demographics, and if the houses are not any more affordable over the next 20 years, the demographics of this community is going to look dramatically different, including the schools. And that's part of this discussion as well. I mean, this all plays into that, and that's part of the reality here.
And I'm just saying, that I think the town needs to do a better job explaining to the public, because they did a terrible job in the last go around. This is all great, but you're going to have industry to offset the tax base. Industry is not what brings growth. It's people that bring growth. And that needs to be a theme that comes from the city to its citizens.
And I'm happy to have offline discussions with you on the industry side. And if you want to place on an advisory committee for concept planning, would love to have you. And tap in, yeah.
And I'll give you a call in the next couple of days. We're overdue for a
And
meeting.
I know
I apologize.
no, it's all good. We missed each other, and you're busy, and I'm busy, and I get it. So I would love to get more information from you.
Okay.
Okay, so Don, where does that leave us
So
at this point?
I think what I'd like to, really in a nutshell, trying to boil this down, I mean,
The final slide.
okay, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you're good. Is that where you're going, or?
Maybe.
Okay. I was just going to do kind of the final wrap-up, if that's okay.
Yep.
Oops.
Because,
Oh,
I
do
think
it here.
yeah.
So basically, the final wrap-up is that with everything we've presented to you tonight and the draft, we as staff are recommending that you all recommend approval to City Council of the Housing Production Strategy Resolution. And so why are we recommending this? Because we believe to the best extent possible it meets the state mandated requirements while still being tailored to the Canby community and its housing needs. And we have done an extensive public participation process throughout this. As Don mentions, this has been a 2.5-year process. There were stakeholder interviews, which are found in the housing production strategy. The summary of those, there was a public open house with a survey that was found, that is also included in the document in the appendix. You all have seen this several times and been brought along on the process as well. City Council has had some work sessions. So the culmination of those three is why we believe that this should be recommended for approval.
And if you have specific comments on the strategies, the ones A through O that are in the staff report, I mean, we'd like to take your commentary to the council and globally, whatever your comments are, and I don't necessarily want to belabor this, but if there's something that stands out, like, hopefully this makes sense. I know it's a framework, it's kind of conceptual, These items would be tracked, and, again, some of these may not continue to be on this list. We'd have to renegotiate with DLCD if that happens. I don't have a crystal ball completely on, like, everything that's going to happen over the next 4 years, but this is the starting place for us in that discussion to match up our housing needs with what is a way to hopefully hope to reduce housing prices to the extent the city has control over them.
Speaking for myself, looking at all of those items, it all seems like you have to get down into the weeds for each and every one of them. I mean, it seems like it's a good level of even, non-specificity to give us room to work on going forward, and so I'd be comfortable sending it straight to council.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that affordable housing is a fallacy that the state of Oregon and the city of Canby is trying to find. It just isn't going to work. And I think that, I appreciate everything you guys have done with putting this together, but I see this as the state pushing the city of Canby to make affordable housing work at our expense. And we are going to end up picking up the tab. Because when these loans go bad, we're going to be the ones holding the bad paper. And I think it is an absolute mistake. Canby has got some very serious things when it comes to electricity and water and industrial that are way, 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 way more important than this. And that's my opinion.
I agree with this. It might be state mandated, but this is, if the people understood this, especially Canby, if Canby understood this room would be packed, and it wouldn't be for it.
I just heard the other day that our permit that we have for our new water plant that we supposedly are going to have isn't going to work because it's coming out of a shallow part of the Willamette that won't supply us with the water that we need, and now we're looking for other sources of that. So now we not only have we don't have enough electricity to supply our needs in town, we don't have enough water to supply our needs in town. We got much bigger problems than turning into financiers to try to hit this unachievable thing called affordable housing. And I don't know why we're spending so much time, other than the state of Oregon is trying to force it down our throats.
And then just to clarify a couple of points, you're talking about the growth needs, the water and the electricity. We don't have what we need to grow.
We're going to grow. We are going to grow. We know we're going to grow. But we need the basics, and we've got to figure out the basics to do that. Trying to figure out affordable housing to become financiers for affordable housing, we shouldn't do that. At least I don't want my tax dollars spent for that. I want my tax dollars spent for having enough electricity and enough water and enough sewer so that my home and my neighbors' homes function. Not that we spend a bunch of money on financing of this thing, whatever this thing is called affordable housing. I'm sorry, it's just not what I want to see my money spent on. State of Oregon seems to think that they do that with all kinds of things, but I don't see why we have to do it here.
So with that input, what do you want to take to the to the
No,
council?
I mean, we'll take
Sounds like
this
what you
forward. I
got.
think they probably have similar sentiments on that. The challenge is every jurisdiction, not that it makes it easier, is going through the same process. And that's why we took a bit of a pause, because it's like, let's see how well they do. And then they're like, Malala just got remanded. And it's like, because we didn't want to be the ones up in the front of this thing, and so we're trying to also find a way that gives the authority to the council to make those decisions about what are those financial commitments and what are those, to give them that ultimate authority and to weigh out those financial consequences. I don't disagree at all that the infrastructure is a critical path item, and we have like a 10-year horizon for the water system, improvements that need to happen, and that's not a long time. I think on the boundary piece of this, that's all going to be contingent that those things be solved before annexation. You can still plan for it, and we should plan for that because that is the future. But I don't disagree. This is the formula that we've been given to take this through, and there's not a lot of negotiation with this process. Really, that's unfortunate. Home rule is not like what it was before. It's a bit more, we're preempting that to that degree. I think at the same time, I don't think this is at the magnitude that where we're becoming the bank. I think these are limited items that would be something the city would have control over with assets backing them. But I don't really think the council's going to want to get out on a limb either.
I guess the city council needs to just ask, the state of Oregon should ask the question first, but the city council needs to ask the question. There's a guy called Dave Ramsey out there, and he says never, ever, ever co-sign for your kids or for anybody else. And this is just exactly what we're doing, trying to figure out this affordable housing problem that we say that we have. We can't do that. We can't do that and be sustainable as a city government. We just can't do it. Financially, we can't do it. You look at these big cities, Chicago, Detroit, LA, all these big cities, they all got into the housing thing and financing and everything else. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and we certainly shouldn't start it here in Canby.
Well, and I think you got to come back to the will of the people. If we went town by town, if Canby understood this, they would vote this down in a heartbeat. This is the will of the state of Oregon politics. This isn't the will of the people.
Well, and that's just the point, right?
It's not up to us.
It's not,
We're trying to come up with things that are vague enough that give us flexibility to do things the Canby way and still be in compliance with state law. And Don's dancing on a knife edge over there, trying to make everybody happy.
And if there's something that you guys has, alternatively,
it's neat, but I think it's a financial disaster for this town, probably many others too.
It's like, give us your opinion with a gun to your head. That's what it feels like. I hate to say it, but I also
all the planning commission approved it.
But I sympathize with what you're saying, and I agree. If the state is mandating it,
The state is mandating this for every town that's over 10,000 people. So think about how many cities there are in the state. So, it's not like it's just Canby. I think I think that changes how things play out in the long run for everybody involved, right? It's not like, this is just Canby that's offering these incentives. And, everyone is going to have to figure this out along the way together. Us, Malala, even smaller towns that are only 10,000 people are having to figure out how to do this along the way as well. It's important.
So again, these are things that are tools at council's disposal that they can choose to use or not to use based on. And am I hearing that right? Based on the economics of the time.
And that's exactly right. And again, I think back to Commissioner Hutchinson's point, these are all going to get fleshed out through the process of an ordinance. All but one of these items is an ordinance item, which means that they're going to have pro forma and all kinds of stuff around it. What we're trying to do is say, can we do a set of framework here for these items being discussed further over the next 4 years and brought forth, and they may look like, yeah, we did what we said we were going to do, but they're bookends of those. I don't think we can define those bookends until we go through the ordinance process, but we can't get through the DLCD process without having these in the mix to address the medium family income spectrum that we have in the city of Canby.
What does the ordinance process look like exactly?
So Planning Commission would have a shot at this, and you guys would make a recommendation. It would have more specificity around it. We'd have a staff report. We'd go through, just like you guys do for hearing items, but it'd be for an ordinance element like you all did for housing needs analysis and cottage cluster and planned unit development. Those are fairly robust activities where at the end of it, I mean, I think it was a lot of repetition, but it was very well vetted.
You know, I guess if we're sending pointers to the council, I'd like to see the council, speak up a little more on this. This is where you need citizen action. And if the city of Canby understood this was all state mandated and not from the city elected officials, it's time to put some heat on Salem.
Can I ask a question? So, Commissioner Ewart and Lilling, I understand that you are against this, but with the understanding that this is required of us, are there any changes that would get you to a yes?
The biggest change I think I would make to this would be, I don't have a problem with the was it Bancroft and the different options that you have, but I would not attach the city to have any liability to any of those loan procedures. Okay, if somebody wants to come in, they want to do a project, I guess that if the city would have to, if it would be the planning department, you say, you know what, here's 3 options for you, go there. But the city isn't going to give up their SDCs or anything else. We're not going to give you a break on your taxes or anything else. I'm sorry, but we need that money for our water plant, our electricity, and our streets, and our transportation program, and everything else. But here's some low-cost loans that might help you build with your project. Okay? But we're not going to fund a low-income housing development. The city just is not going to do that. I think that would be incorrect for us to do that. And I think if it were put to a vote of the city, the citizenry of the city of Canby, they would vote against that. That would be my opinion.
I would agree.
I could be wrong with that.
I think you're probably correct. I mean, it's unfortunate there is not a vote really here, though, that we've been given on this.
Well, it would be up. It sounds like it would be up to the ordinance process,
which would go through the public process and the vetting of that. I guess
I'll bet you get some citizen input on that agenda.
I would hope. The way it's more likely to look is that the city will define a certain minimum percentage of units within a certain development that shall be, under within the certain parameters required to be, to feed to the community that needs it. And I doubt that we're going to, a lot of people of our age tends to think back about what happened in the projects of Chicago, and it's like part of the problem with that is that there was zero oversight about how those things were built, and they were built shoddily, and all kinds of horrible things came as a result of that. But we've also learned some political rules in the meantime. And so I feel like that we can do this. I mean, it's really what the deal is we have depended on the market to deal with this problem, and instead the market has doubled down on its profit margin and isn't giving us what we need. And we need to wring out of the industry what we need. And there's a huge disparity between, subsistence wages and a place to live. And the options that you lose, it's not always people living on the street. It's people crashing on other people's couches. It's people sleeping in their cars. It's kids moving in between school districts because they don't have a consistent place to stay. And so their education then becomes variable. There's a whole bunch of things that we're trying to avoid by doing this, and the state is making us do it to try and avoid those things that it will then have to deal with if we let the problem get worse. And so, I mean, we're working within the parameters that we have, that the state has given us. And I don't think, I think that we're right on the edge of viability. I have a feeling that the state's going to kick it back to us without some more firm numbers, but I'm willing to give this one a shot.
I guess if we had to do like a snap poll, I would say I would approve, but with a strongly echoed sentiment of all comments made prior. How the hell do we pay for it?
Yeah.
The suite of options.
A committee waits for you.
That Commissioner Llewellyn will lead to figure out how the hell it's going to be paid for.
God help you.
And I think we've received, that's really what we're seeking. And obviously, council, they're going to have to wade through this as well. We have a bit of time. We're going to go to council on October 1st. My goal is, no matter, even if that took a bit of time and we had to go several times back to them, we're still ahead of the December 1 deadline that we have for getting this all completed.
And I almost would encourage, maybe at my own peril, but to have a work session between the two, the council and the planning commission. I hate doing this in a bubble and then just, council's over, in a separate meeting and we're not conversing about this in any way, shape, or form. And it would sure be nice to be able to do this process with them as opposed to two separate things. So items, especially like what Commissioner Llewellyn and Vice Chair Ewert are talking about, can really get conveyed, but then also you have the counterpoints of what Commissioner Hutchinson has to offer as well. So I think those would be a pretty interesting sit-down chat. I'm sorry, work session.
Yeah. And I would love to be able to do that. I just don't know if we can have enough time.
Sure.
But you all would be more than welcome to attend the October 1st hearing. I would, if you would like to testify on that, that would be great. And again, it's just because of the timeline here, we're feeling a bit of pressure.
Don, I was also going to add, council accepts written comments as well for the resolution, correct?
Yeah, they would.
So anyone tonight and/or our commissioners who didn't make it to the meeting, can submit a comment as an individual, and it could be in writing if you can't make it, and that could be added to the record and given to council to review. So that's something to think about as well.
Just take the transcripts of tonight and forward it on later. In bold.
Emily's job.
Okay. So, we can convey that on. I don't even not necessarily need to, do a vote here, but just, the sentiments we've captured. I think we've captured them.
Pretty vividly, yeah.
Yeah. But to Commissioner Hutchinson's point, we're hoping this is enough. He is correct on that. That is the hope. So, again, that's where we're trying to find the middle ground on this spectrum that is fairly difficult to find.
So you're saying it could get spicier from here on out?
It could get spicier from DLCD's commentary if we, but we believe this in our minds meets the standard. But how they interpret that is going to be, they have a whole team of people waiting to review these.
All right.
Yeah.
So now that we've sort of kind of quasi-resolved that point, should we move on to items of interest and then look to wrap
do that?
up?
So we will take your comments forward. I appreciate your input tonight on that, and there'll be more discussion, and I think it's like they will have some of the same concerns.
Okay. So next up then, items of interest from planning staff regarding a Monday, September 8th meeting.
We have a few items before I even get to that. I just wanted to let you know the fence code was adopted unanimously by the city council.
Yay.
And there was positive neighborhood commentary, especially for Mr. Potter, Ryan Potter, doing his presentation. It was well-received, and the neighbor testimony actually answered many of the council questions. So it was unanimous approval for the fence code. So thank you all for your input on that. That went through. September 8th, we'll have an update on the community summit, and we also sent out a blast for a questionnaire that we would like you all to submit commentary on goals and policies. You all should have received an email for goals and policies about the comp plan. I know several of you attended the community summit. We've sent this to all the advisory boards as well, so for their commentary. That's due on September 5th. So if you all would like, we'd love to have you comment on that and provide commentary on goals and policies for the comprehensive plan. So September 8th, that we'll talk about the community summit. We're compiling those comments. I don't know if we'll have all of them, but I'll give you an update on September 8th. September 22nd, we have the continuation of tonight's hearing on the parking. And we'll also be talking about the comprehensive plan and transportation system plan goals and policies. We'll have more information on that. I don't know if we have items on October 13th or not, but we will have on October 27 a TSP transportation system plan work session that's planned. So that gives us a bit of what we're doing. I'm not sure about the 13th at this point, October 13th, but I'll let you know. And that's pretty much it for our end of things.
Okay. Items of interest and guidance from Planning Commission. I just want to say Commissioner McCarthy didn't run out of here with her hair on fire, so that was a good sign. We appreciate that. And we're looking forward to you participating in our continuance process, so hopefully you took notes. Anything from the Planning Commission staff? I'm sorry, Planning Commissioners? No? All right. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Seeing that the ayes have it, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.